Hi, this is Allison in Michigan, and with just about a week left until Election Day, you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I'm here in this segment with Gretchen Driskell, who's the Democratic nominee for the Michigan 7th District. Hi Gretchen.
Hey Kelly, how you doing?
I'm great. You may be able to hear I have a little bit of laryngitis, but I'm going to fight through it. Can you start by just a little bit of background, a little bit about who you are and why you're running for Congress?
Sure. Well, I'm glad to be talking to a fellow mom. I'm actually a grandma now, too, so that really contributed to part of my decision because I'm actually running for the second time here for this seat. And, you know, we ran hard and worked hard last cycle, so running again took a lot of thought. But when you have a baby looking at you, you know, it helps make that decision, right? But anyhow, yeah, I have 3 kids. My kids are grown, though. My 30-year-old, a 28-year-old, and a 24-year-old, and a grandbaby. And I just decided to run for Congress because I have been in public office for a number of years, and I see that there's some big challenges right now with people, especially women, having a voice for their rights and for the kids' rights and fairness in the political system, and just making sure that we're looking out. I mean, healthcare, there's just so many more things going on, especially right now. But, you know, the healthcare passage last year, that their effort to roll back the Affordable Care Act and replace it with something that was going to be so terrible was really scary, and just I think it made a lot of people sit up and take notice in a whole new way. That part of it. And then here in the district that I'm running in, you know, I was a mayor for a long time. I was the first woman mayor and served for a long time, and I really understand what's happening here on the ground for so many people that are working hard and still not able to get ahead. And that's something that I think we can do some good work on when I get in office.
So where is the 7th District in Michigan? What are the kinds of people?
Sure. Basically, it goes along the Ohio border. So it's Monroe County, it's Lake Erie, so the easternmost portion of the southern portion of Michigan. It's 7 counties in the 7th. So Monroe County, there's 4 counties along the Ohio border: Monroe, Lenawee, Hillsdale, Branch, and then Jackson County, Eaton County, which is on the west side of Lansing. And then my home county wraps around where University of Michigan is, so it is a gerrymandered district. So it basically wraps almost completely around Ann Arbor. So I have the northern and eastern portion of the county, and then my hometown, Saline, where I was mayor for a number of years. And I was also a state rep in that portion in my home county for 2 terms. So I have a lot of familiarity with the 6 other counties I've learned a lot about over the last several years. But basically, it's a district that has a lot of small towns. You know, the largest population is Jackson, the city of Jackson, about 35,000 people. Population has shrunk. We had a lot of reliance on the automotive and manufacturing economy, and agriculture economy is the other big economic sector. And so we're in a big transition here in this portion of the state, as is much of Michigan, with how, you know, what our workforce skill, what our education and experience needs to be for the new economy and getting folks trained in new economy jobs.
So you mentioned that you had run in the last cycle and now you're running again. And this time around, you know, it seems at least 538 is rating it a toss-up despite a lack of polling. But, you know, how does it feel different to you this time around? Are you sensing differences in the reception to the campaign? What does that look like?
It's completely different. Well, first of all, what happened last cycle was people didn't come out to vote. We had over 30,000 Democrats that didn't vote for top of the ticket. We did outperform Hillary as a Democrat congressional candidate, but we also had a lot of people come out for the first time vote for Donald Trump. And here in Michigan, we had straight ticket last cycle, so that means people just filled out that Republican bubble and everybody down ticket got elected, and that happened actually across the state. There was another guy in the district who was a state house member that won by like 60% last. So there was a big change in makeup in 16 from a typical presidential. And then one of the main reasons I'm running again is because of moms and the activism that I saw once I finished my term in the legislature in 2017. I started going out and listening in the counties that make up the 7th, and saw and heard from a lot of women, indivisible groups. We've had some other groups that came together about certain issue areas that were just very concerned about the direction our state and country were going in and wanted to affect change, and were really involved in accountability for their representatives. And I watched it grow and continue to develop. Also, the county parties got much more active than in 16. And so basically it's completely different here right now than it was in 16, with a lot of activation of voters. And that's not just Democrats, but independents, moderate Republicans. It's just, things like climate change and good education and infrastructure. Those are all really bipartisan issues, like fixing things. People want to see government work for them. They want to make sure that when they work hard, they can get ahead, and they can, their kids can stay in the town they grew up in and get a good paying job. So some basic things that people are really looking for here. It's a environment, and I feel really good about the level of engagement, what we're hearing out. I spend a lot of time every day out. We're just driving back tonight from an event in the district, and we're out every day. And also, like, what I call cold calling people, like at the diners or coffee shops, and just walking up to people and asking what they're thinking. And they want change in D.C., and I feel confident that we can defeat the incumbent. We're using our resources more effectively. This time we're on Toledo TV, which, as I mentioned, we're right on the Ohio border, and we hadn't been able to be on that media market since last decade. So it's been beneficial. We've had some support from Swing Left. You may be familiar with that organization. They identified our race right out of the gate as being, when they first went up on the internet, as being competitive. So, and it really is. It is a seat that's gone back and forth. And we don't have straight ticket actually this time, and I think that's actually going to help us for various reasons. So it's a completely different environment here, and I'm really confident Debbie Stabenow is going to prevail. Also, Gretchen Whitmer, our governor candidate, is doing well in the polling. So in general, things look really good.
Yeah, it seems like a real a year for women everywhere across the country, but especially in Michigan. We're hearing a lot of excitement around all the great women running in Michigan this year.
Yeah, it's been really rewarding because I never really, you don't focus on being a woman, you focus on doing a good job, right? But I know being the first woman mayor, and then being active in the state house, I've always tried to get more women involved politically. And I will tell you that President Trump getting elected activated a whole lot of women that I've been working on for, you try to get women engaged and support them, and just, it's hard to do. And so sometimes it takes some outside forces that really initiate engagement. And I do think that this will build and we'll continue to get more and more women involved, because the more you learn, the more you see there's more work that needs to be done, right? So like what you're doing is great. And that's part of this, is like communicating and reaching out to people and helping them learn about what's happening out there. Because that's really what happened with the indivisible groups. They started with President Trump, and then they end up talking and meeting and learning about the congressperson. And so that's really developed a lot of engagement.
What are the kinds of things you think you take from having been mayor and having been in the state legislature that you would be bringing to Congress? There are a lot of people running for Congress this year who are first-time candidates and have never held any elected office.
Yeah, which is great, because that's their fresh perspective. And I think being the first time, it's always like, well, why are we doing it this way? That's one of the best things about being like new at something, is you question a lot. And so I will be questioning a lot, because obviously I've never been in Congress before. But I think one of the things, I actually had Congressman Kildee come to the district and talk with some of my local mayors about infrastructure and clean water, some of the basic roles of good government. And, I think that he there's not that many folks that come from local government being on the ground and understanding issues at the community level and the engagement. And I was nonpartisan for 20 years in local government. Here in Michigan, our cities, the majority of them aren't partisan. So you don't really run on a party platform. You run, what you see as your vision for what could make the community stronger. So that perspective, I carry forward in everything I do, and making sure that you listen. And I mean, you can't be a leader and represent people if you don't know what they're thinking and how they're feeling and what's happening. So it's really important to me to be a good listener and reflect, what I learn in the decision making that we do in DC. And it's as you get higher up, it's harder and harder to do. But there's, like I said, fundamental issues like basic health care. That should not be being. We don't need to be going backwards in that area. There's a lot of things we could do to fix it, and I'm looking forward to having the right people at the table to do things like that. Equal pay for equal work is something we worked on at the state level. So, but from my experience at the local level, I think it's just being alongside community volunteers and engaging with people from different, whether it's business or education or nonprofits or church. People that are engaged at the community level are looking for innovative solutions and need tools and a partner in Congress to do that. And so I'm familiar with both, that role and what a good congressperson looks like. I had a great relationship with our two previous congressmen, and I'm looking forward to being that kind of reflective, responsive congressperson.
You mentioned that agriculture is one of the drivers of the district. I know agriculture seems to be sort of a hot topic right now. A lot of things with like the farm bill and soy tariffs and things like that. What are you hearing from the farmers in your district?
Well, I met with the soybean farmer. I guess I would say that there's a lot of concern about stability in the market and support. I know that the House Farm Bill was not very beneficial for our farmers that are long, multi-generational farm families that are smaller farmers. That the Republican bill was not beneficial for smaller farmers that are starting for the first time, like farmers markets and the nutrition program. But I also know, Debbie Stabenow, who's our senior senator here, is also the chair of the Ag Committee, and she's a friend and supporter, and she has a bipartisan bill that came out of the Senate that will help fix some of those things if she can get the House to come along. And so they're basically doing consensus, like reconciling the two bills. So hopefully it'll be a lot better, because this is the first time, I think, ever that the Farm Bill was completely partisan and just no Democrats voted for it. And there are a lot of, like, I'm very interested in making sure that we support our ag community. We are the second largest state in the country for diversity of agricultural products. And, we have a lot of water here, so I expect that we'll continue to be a prominent force in agriculture. And it's a really strong, growing part of our economy. So I'm looking forward to being a good partner with our farmers. And so they, like I said, they are looking for stability in the market when it comes to tariffs, and hopefully those things will get resolved here sooner than later.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about?
Personally, campaign finance reform has been a real big, I think that we really need to make sure we get people elected that understand, and also that our citizens understand that this whole issue with money in politics. While we have a lot of citizens that are, supporting our campaign, but nationally and here in Michigan, we've had a lot of, our voices are not heard, they're heard through the vote, and that there's too much money in politics, basically, and we need to have more transparency and disclosure. And people have asked me, like, when I say that, can we turn back Citizens United? And I don't know if that necessarily we can do that necessarily, but I think there's other tools where we can make people and whoever is contributing to political campaigns there needs to be more transparency. And I think that's something we're looking forward to working on when we get the Democratic majority, and also possibly looking at some kind of public financing mechanisms to make it more fair. It's really difficult for a lot of really high caliber folks to run as candidates because of the money and how it's out of balance, I guess is the best way. And that's happening here in our state. It's pretty shocked to see, how quickly the increases. The level of contributions were doubled. Like my first term in the House, it was kind of amazing to see how quickly that changes, and we really need to get on top of that. So like accountability and transparency in government is really, really important to me, and I think it's something we need to make sure our representatives are participating in.
If our listeners would like to help support your campaign in this final week before the election, how can they do that?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. We have a website, votegretchen.com. That's a place where, we have an Active account set up, and it is a difficult, our district, as I mentioned, is a lot of smaller towns across 7 counties, so we have to use all the different messaging tools that we can. So we are in digital and direct mail and at the doors, and then we're also up on TV in Detroit and Lansing, and as I mentioned, Toledo. So it's expensive, and but we are doing really well. We're very fortunate to have had great support, and I have a really great team that is working for a win here, and it's going really well. We're all really excited here on the ground, and we're getting a great response, and that would be really helpful. There's more also about my background. I come at this from a family tradition of military service, so there's a lot of really fantastic women veterans out across the country, and that's really great. And so that's something that we, I think, all have this common belief about how important it is to give back to our country. And I know so many people like you are doing that in your way of doing this blog and informing our moms and other folks that are interested in good government, looking out for our kids. And I would just say that we do have, education. There's a lot of roles that the federal government has in making sure that we support our children, whether or not we're talking about affordable child care or, education tools or higher education and training. VOTEC, as I mentioned, and educational training is really important too for having a good future for our children. And so I appreciate the time to be able to be on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have a super busy schedule here as the campaign wraps up, but it's been really great to talk to you, and I'm really excited about your campaign and so many of these campaigns that seem to be sort of a little bit under the radar, not a whole lot of polling, but it definitely looks like it's going to be super strong.
We've done our own internal polling, and I'm very confident not only from our polling, but also from just the general energy out there. There's many layers of why people are engaged, whether or not we're talking about school safety and the gun situation and school safety, or climate change, what kind of legacy we're leaving for our kids and our grandkids and their kids. I mean, this is something I talk about every day when I'm talking to people about why if they haven't gotten involved, which a lot of people already have, but how to get more and more people involved, and not only for this election, but to stay involved after that. It doesn't stop election day, even if you get who you want elected. But I think we have a lot of community learning and helping each other build strong communities and successful country and world for our kids and their kids. All
right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to be watching your race on coming up very close here on November 6th.
Hi, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and I'm the host of Wonder Media Network's podcast, Women Belong in the House. It's been a dark few years, but more people than ever are stepping up and taking action. A record number of women are running for office this year. We're telling their stories. I'm asking, who are these people, and why in the world did they decide to run? Why are there so few women in office to begin with? And what would be different if that changed? Check out Women Belong in the House wherever you get your podcasts. We'll bring you a weekly dose of hope and optimism.
I am here today with Cathy Albro, who is running for Congress in the Michigan 3rd District. Hi, Cathy.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me. Could you start by telling us just a little bit about your background and why you're running for Congress this year?
Sure. Well, I am running for Congress. I'll start with that one first because for many, many reasons, as you can imagine, the list is long. But I was a teacher, and then I worked with teachers all over the country to help them develop active learning curriculum. And my work with other teachers was mostly in places like Appalachia and reservations in the Southwest and segregated areas in the South. And Flint, Michigan was actually the last place that I worked. And so what I saw was a huge disparity in education because my first years as a teacher was in an affluent community. So I could see the difference of what we fund and we support as Americans for our educational system is definitely geared toward the students who already have a lot of what they need, rather than giving the children and supporting the children who need the most. They usually get the least. So I went home and cried almost every day with what I saw, and huge class sizes, no materials, new teachers without experience, lack of support made me want to advocate for a more equitable educational system, and that was going on in my life for 30 years. So that, along with the Trump election and the healthcare problems and just the whole tone of what's going on in this country, has made me want to run for Congress.
And where exactly in Michigan is the 3rd district?
It is not quite to Lake Michigan, but it's on the west side of the state, from Grand Rapids, north of Grand Rapids, to way south of Battle Creek. It's actually 4 counties and a little bit of another county. It's a very gerrymandered district. I read that when it was gerrymandered in 2012 after the census, that it was the second most Republican district in the state of Michigan. So, obviously I'm not favored to win in this district, but we just read a CNN evaluation that I could either lose by up to 10 or win by up to 6. So it's definitely a race that I need to keep running. And, I think that the votes are there if we keep going here.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like there's been any real polling in this district.
I would say not real polling. I mean, it's hard to get a poll unless you have a ton of money.
Right.
So I think the polls that have been done have been mostly landlines and small samples. So I think I have more of a feel being on the ground and talking to people every day, knocking on their doors, and I'm feeling really good about it.
What are you hearing from people as you talk to them? What are the issues that are really concerning them this year?
I would say the most talked about issue is health care. Almost everyone has a story to tell me about either themselves or someone they know very close that is going through or has gone through a problem with not getting care in time to catch something in its early stages, or losing a lot of money trying to pay their bills, and they're in huge debt trying to pay off a hospital stay or something like that. So I believe in a single-payer healthcare system. Unless somebody teaches me about something different that would work better, I think that we can save a lot of money, 25 to 30%, perhaps just looking at what other countries are doing by negotiating lower drug prices and regulating medical procedures with a standardized price. In fact, I read about a study that was done in Wisconsin where the average knee replacement is $50,000. So someone did some research. For 18 months, they actually tracked the real cost of a knee replacement, and it was $10,500. So we have a lot of work to do to get to the bottom of why our health care is so expensive. And then, of course, eliminating the bureaucratic layer of insurance companies that make about 20% extra for their marketing and CEO pay and their overhead. We know we can save money there, too. So that, to answer your question, that's the most important or frequently mentioned concern. But also here in this district, we have had a lot of PFAS contamination detected in our drinking water. And that is another huge concern for the people here because it's coming up more and more in more people's water. So, and it's very expensive to treat. And right now, the companies who have polluted are not stepping up. In fact, the federal government is one with the military bases and airports. They're not stepping up right now to mitigate it. So I believe we need a stronger EPA that holds states accountable for, investigating these toxins and keeping them out of our water and air. And we need more scientists on board again because they have been eliminated from the EPA for the most part. So those would be the two biggest concerns.
The people that you're talking to, are they excited about voting this year? Are they interested about voting? What does that kind of look like on the ground there?
Yes. People are very excited, but we are actually trying to hit independent and Republican doors and reach those people as well because, as I said, it's a Republican-leaning district, so we need those votes. And what I'm finding is that people, especially women, will even whisper to me so their significant other doesn't hear that they are voting for Dems this year because they are just so tired of what's happening, especially the way women are being treated and other people of color and the discrimination. So I think that, and I do hear, I would say maybe 5% of the people I talk to say they're not going to vote. And some of them I can convince, and some of them definitely will never vote in their life. So it's an interesting, and nobody's going to know till election night what's going on.
And so Michigan has a woman running for governor this year on the Democratic side, and of course a woman senator who's running for re-election. But this district has never been represented by a woman as far as I can tell.
It never has. In fact, the last time a Democrat represented it was in 1974 when Gerald Ford was president. This is his district. And I think the people in this district were tired of what was happening with Nixon, and so they voted for a Democrat. But that only lasted 2 years. So since then, we've had Republican representation. And there have been a few women, maybe 2 or 3 women who have run, but no one has been voted in as Congresswoman. So I'm hoping I'm the first. But as you said, the slate in Michigan is the top 7 in this area are women, including me. But there's also a Secretary of State and Attorney General that are women. And then in this area, also State Senate and State Rep.
That's excellent. It's really the year of the women this year.
I think so, yeah, which it should be. With only 19% of us in Congress, people say, well, do you want it to be all women? No, I would, but it needs to be at least 50-50 because we make up at least 50% of the population.
So what are some things that you would like to see in education? I know federal government doesn't control everything in education, but what are some of the kinds of things that you think the Congress should be doing to help education?
Well, I think the most important thing that they can do is hold states accountable. I do believe that states need to be somewhat autonomous in their decision-making, but not totally. And the Department of Education should hold states accountable for equity, which means that every child gets what they need to succeed. And like I was saying before, there are some schools where the children who need the most get the least. And that is because they live in areas that are not funded with tax dollars, property tax dollars, like in Michigan and other states. It's not an equitable distribution. But in addition to that, what the research in Michigan has shown is that, first of all, we need to be increasing our per-student funding per year by $2,000 just to meet minimum requirements. But those children living in poverty should have an additional 35% funding, and special needs children even more than that. And that's not happening in this state or many other states. So I would hold there are criteria for equity that are out there and can be measured. So I would say that would be the most important part of the federal government's responsibility, is to hold states accountable for equity. And then to make sure that we, states and the federal government, are allocating enough funds to make that happen. Right now, thank goodness Betsy DeVos didn't get her way to reallocate funds to non-public schools. For the most part, our Congress has voted this year to keep the budget about the same. I also believe I'm an early childhood supporter. That's what my degree is in. And I also owned a child care center that I started many years ago. So I believe that early childhood education is so important, high quality, not just, bringing your children down to someone's basement to babysit. We need high quality early childhood education from birth, actually, because a lot of families don't have good child care and they need to go back to work or go back to school in order to support their families. So, and then also on the other end, making sure that everyone can afford or they have free post-high school education that leads into a career. And we know that people will have to change their careers. It's happening now frequently through their lifetime. And so making sure that we have educational opportunities for them to update their skills and their knowledge to change their career.
I know one of the big issues right now everywhere, and this is certainly coming up in Michigan, is gun violence. And I read on your website that your family had been affected by shootings. Could you talk a little bit about the kinds of things you would like to see done by Congress to address the gun violence epidemic in this country?
Sure. Well, what I wrote about on my website was that, in the past, like probably 40 or 50 years ago, my family lived on farms in North Dakota, so they had guns all over the place for hunting and that type of thing. So the two accidents were actually accidental shootings of siblings and friends and that kind of thing, which happens frequently with guns that are not locked up. Those accidental shootings are frequent as well as suicides. 2/3 of gun deaths are suicide-related. But first of all, I don't want to take away Second Amendment rights, as many people are accusing me of. I just believe that there are certain things that we can do and that the Constitution allows for, and that is a comprehensive background check on all firearm transfers in the whole country. Right now, some states have more regulation or protection than others, so it's easy for someone to go into a state and purchase a gun legally with no background check and then bring it into a state that has, more strict protections on gun purchases. So I think it needs to be a federal law. We need to make sure that the data is up to date, and everyone, whether it's a gun show, an online sale, or whatever, everyone has to go through that background check in order to purchase a gun or to be given a gun. I believe in safety classes. I don't know if you can mandate it, but I sure would hope so, that we could mandate or regulate the locking up guns and separating the ammunition from the guns, so that children and people who, we've had some shootings where the perpetrators had access to their parents' gun or somebody else's gun. So if we lock them up, that access won't be quite as easy. I also believe in trigger locks, or some way that other people cannot use your guns. Those are all things that I believe that if we have a Democratic majority, we can pass. But with the Republican majority, that's not going to happen.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about?
The way that things are happening in this country right now favor the wealthy, favor companies that are making huge profits, and they're getting away with not paying their fair share. So I really want to be able to work in a Congress, in a government, where we can shift our priorities to supporting the people in this country and investing in our people, because I really do believe that the return on investment, if we do that, will be far greater in the end than the way that we're doing things now, where maybe 10% of our population is, getting the benefits of what we're doing. So that's what we need to focus on, is when we go to the polls on Election Day, to think about what is the country that we want to live in. What does that look like? And make those decisions correctly.
If our listeners would like to help you out on your campaign in these last 6 days, how can they do that?
Well, actually, we are, based on what we're bringing in, we're adding more to our social media and our texting pushes, all those things that we can do last minute, radio spots. I would love to get more donations to be able to do that, to put us over the top. My website is Cathy, CATHY, ALBRO, forcongress.com, and there's a donate button right when you open it up.
All right, excellent. We'll put a link to that on our website as well. So, Cathy, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'm sure you have a very busy schedule in this week. And thank you so much for stepping up and running. I really think a lot of these districts have been overlooked, and I am hoping CNN is right and you'll win by 6 points.
Thank you, Kelly. Me too. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Wethlin and was created for use by this podcast.